So it's like, you have to sit and translate. And you're only in fourth grade. What do you know in fourth grade?
Wow.
Well, I have to say the teachers could have made it a little more interesting, to be quite honest.
You're making it
My
very
favorite Nubby teacher in school had us draw comics.
Wow, that is cool. I used to do plays with the kids, with the high school kids. They had to do plays for certain of the events. So this would have been an event that they had to write a play for.
Are we Zooming?
Not Zooming. I'm taping this for my granddaughter in-law. My son Alter's daughter-in-law. Just such a sweetheart. And she heard I'm doing this class. I want you to send me a copy. So, Mushka, I'm very sorry, but I can't so much catch you up. I'll catch you up maybe privately. I'll do a catch-up for you about prophecy and all. Although the whole idea of prophecy comes here too. So here we are at a very exciting moment in the history, in the story of Yehoshua. So as I said before, Yehoshua was the successor of Moshe Rabbeinu. He rather than Moshe Rabbeinu's two sons, they were not the same level to attain the prophecy, and his humbleness. I don't know if they were humble or not, but they were not able to attain that prophecy, that level of prophecy that was necessary for the leader to be a leader of Moshe. As we said before, the book of Yehoshua would have been a sixth book of the 5 books of the Torah, because the reason being that the happenings in the book of Yehoshua, that Yehoshua himself wrote, are of the having the guts to follow God. As God would tell us many times in the future, you followed me in the desert and you followed me into the land, and you didn't know where you were going, but you were my people and I was your God and you followed me. So this is to the allocades of the Jewish people, that they followed God in the desert, and nonetheless that there was issues, but still they were working things out. But now, so this book would have been written anywhere, because it's about the conquering of the land, the entering of the land, how it happened, the actual conquering of the land, and the settling of the land. So, and we're now, as I keep saying, we're in a time period where people are questioning our right to be in the land. And this is our deed. This is our deed. Not only is the 5 books of Moshe our deed, but this itself is our deed. If anybody had any claim to the land besides the 7 nations, who God decided they weren't worthy to be in this special land, we know that the Garden of Eden was really, the land is a physical land. The Garden of Eden had a lot of spirituality to it. It probably was more ethereal than actual physical. It had to become physical. If you can imagine God sending down, making dividing, having waters, and having then the earth and the sun and the moon and the stars and the trees and the birds and all the creation that God did, that Hashem made, that you can imagine that it took time for it to actually be solid physical. I had a teacher once who had kind of explained, kind of had that notion that man was not so physical, the first man, as we are today. As we get more into the physicality of our lives, we're the houses of our spiritual neshama, but we are more physical than we were. So too with the Garden of Eden was just outside the gate. Adam and Eve got sent out of the gate, and the gate was closed. But that's the reason that this land is called the Holy Land, is because the Garden of Eden was like extraordinarily holy. So, Israel, the land of Israel that Hashem gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the gate of that, if you think about it. So as the first Rashi says in Bereshis, the reason you need to know about creation is to understand who is the creator and why you can feel that you have a right into the land, because I created this world. I decided to give it to these 7 nations. I decided they weren't worthy of the 7 nations, and I gave it to the one who followed me all the years through all the trials and tribulations, Abraham and his children, Isaac, and then his children, Jacob, and the 12 tribes. So that's how we have a right to be here. So now we're at the moment of entering the land. So many things happen just in this little tiny parsha. It's a very short parsha. It's 14 or 6, I think maybe 16 verses. And it's so packed. It's so very packed. So they're told on the 7th of Nisan, a month after Moshe dies, they're told that they have to get themselves ready, and they're going to be about to enter the land. I mean, that they're in the land of Shittim, which is not far, probably less than a day away. And he sends out, as we know, Joshua decides to send out 2 spies. The difference between those 2 spies and the 12 spies that caused all the trouble of 40 years in the desert was that he sent them for a reconnaissance, not to see if the land was safe to go and will we be able to conquer it, which showed a lack of faith in God. This was pure reconnaissance. And as I said last week, that so brilliant was Joshua's military expertise, was that in 1948 they used many of his tactics to go to war in the land. And I think West Point and Army academies have studied Joshua's battle plans. It's like really pretty interesting. So it's so ironic to think that people could think that we don't have a connection to the land. It just doesn't even make, I mean, like, where are you coming from? Who has more of a connection than the Jewish people have a connection? Sure, we didn't do the right thing, and we had to be exiled from our land for whatever reason to refine ourselves, but the land does belong to the Jewish people and will always belong to the Jewish people, whether we inhabit it or not, actually. So now we're at the precipice. He tells the people to get up and go, and there's a whole amazing procedure. So the first thing they go, Yehoshua will tell the Kohanim, the priests, that they will be the one to carry the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron Bris Hashem, okay? And they will be the ones to carry it. Who carried it in general? Who were the ones who carried it? The Levites. The Levites generally carried it. Sometimes the Kohanim carried it, but in this instance, they only carried it several times. Once when they went, the Kohanim carried the Ark. And how did they carry the Ark? If you can envision the Ark, I could probably maybe get a picture. You have the Ark, which is solid wood, and it's outlaid with solid gold, inside and outside. It is carrying 2 sets of tablets, the broken luchos and the luchos that Moshe received the second time. Then there's a cover on top that is made of solid gold, and on top of that solid gold cover is the cherubim, the cherubs, the 2 little angels that sometimes, if the Jews were not good, they looked away. If the Jews were good, they looked. So here we have the very thing that will be in the Holy of Holies, the Ark, but now it's out and about. But until now, in the desert, they had the formations of that they would go to, well, as they traveled, Reuven. So they kind of traveled in a circular, they settled in a circular way. So the people who traveled, the first ones who traveled were Reuven and Yehuda. The tribe of Reuven and the tribe of Yehuda traveled first. And in the middle of all the 12 tribes was the Aron. So the Aron was surrounded. Here, Joshua says a whole new thing. We're not going to do it that way now. Now the Aron is going to lead us. And we're going to come to the Jordan, and he tells them, he gets up early in the morning. It's another lesson of how we are supposed to activate ourselves when we're on a mission or just our life. Vayash came baboker. We got up in the morning. Avraham, when he was told to go and sacrifice his son, he did it first thing in the morning. Vayash came baboker. He got up in the morning. So now Yehoshua is getting ready for the day. They're getting ready to cross. And they crossed over. They traveled from Shittim, and they came until the Yarden, until the Jordan River. Rabbi Kornfeld's parents moved. They were very Zionistic, and they moved when he was a college-age student to Israel. They did Aliyah to Israel. And I remember his mother was a very dear woman. They were Holocaust survivors, both his parents, very special. They actually escaped the Holocaust, and they were in South America, but they didn't escape everything. They were from Poland, so they got a good deal of the problems. But she would always refer. Her concern was always about the Yarden, the Jordan. The Jordan River is what really gives water to the parched land of Israel. So she would say the Yarden is very low. The Yarden is okay. We had rain. We didn't have rain. It was all about the whole year. They talked about the Yarden, the Jordan. So when I was reading this and learning it, I was thinking about Mrs. Kornfeld, very special lady. So they went a matter of 3. It was at the end of 3 days. And now Joshua commands the nation, saying, Kireoschem, when you will see Aaron Bris Hashem, the Aaron of the covenant of God, Elokeichem, your God, the HaKohanim, and the Kohanim, and the Leviim, Nosim Ito, that are carrying it, and are traveling, ve'atem tisu mimkomo, and you should travel. My husband says a little story about his grandfather that he didn't want to walk in the lobby of their building when it was Christmas time because he didn't want to see the tree. Mm-hmm. So he would walk all the way around. It was a square block, this apartment building. It had sides like that. It wasn't the whole block of Eastern Parkway, but it was this little square block that went around, maybe a three corner block, a 3 side block. But anyway, so then he would tell my husband when he was in front of the door, Vayisa'u, and we shall travel. I was thinking about that today. So, you will go and you will travel from your place and you will go after the Aaron Bris Hashem, after the Aaron. And then he says a very interesting thing. There's a couple of things that are going on here. He says also, he continues and says, but make sure that you're not too far. So you cannot be more than 2,000 cubits from the Aaron. Why? Because there is a halacha on Shabbos. There's a rule on Shabbos, a law on Shabbos, that you cannot go out of a public city or public place. You can't go 2,000 cubits, whatever a cubit is. You can't go 2,000 cubits away out of the city. Then you're passing by Tchum Shabbos, and then you cannot go back. You have to stay where you are. If you pass the border of how far you can go out of your area or the city on Shabbos. And what would cause it if you went more than 2,000 feet, you would be far away from the Aron, and if you had anything to ask or you had any concern, you wouldn't be able to daven there because you'd be too far away. So they're telling you right here in the beginning, just make sure you're not more than 2,000 feet away from the Aron. Now, when you read it at first, you might think you have to be 2,000 feet away. You can't go so close to the Aron, but we know that they were going close to the Aron. They were traveling with the Aron in their midst, and they weren't like staying away from it like later when it had to go into the Holy of Holies. So now the Aron goes in, is traveling, and you're given these instructions. And there's something else going on here that we don't really see, apparently, which we do see a little bit later, is that Yehoshua now has taken on a role. Now, Yehoshua was chosen by Hashem to be the successor of Moshe and to lead the people into the land and to do what he needed to do to get it all done. But we know that he didn't have right away prophecy as soon as Moshe died, because you can't have prophecy when you're sad. So what happened was, when he needed to have something asked, he had to go to the Kohanim, to the priests, and they had to ask by the Urim V'Tumim. They had to ask by the breastplate any question he had. Now, it's after the 30 days of mourning. It is now even 3 days later. We're on the 10th of Nisan, which is a 10 days into the month of Nisan. And we're about to enter the land, and he is imbued with prophecy now, and he doesn't have to go to the Kohanim to ask of Hashem. He himself has the ability and the power to go directly to God like Moshe did. Not maybe in the same way exactly, but he was like a notch under level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody could reach the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, but Yehoshua came pretty darn close. And so now he can give prophecy, he can receive prophecy, and but still not on the level, he gets it right away, but not on the level of Moshe. What do I mean by that? Because Moshe could say to a person who came to ask him, what about this and what about that? Questions in Torah. What do we do with this? He could say, hang on a minute, I'll go ask of God and get the answer right away. Most prophets, now Yehoshua had it up to a point. Most other prophets could wait days before a question, if at all, could be answered, even though they did have prophecy, but they didn't have that kind of clarity. Remember, we talked about the mirror, the idea of prophecy to a mirror. There's a very clear mirror, that's Moshe, and then there's mirror that's a little further, a little obstructed, more and more and more obstructed till the different various levels of clarity of prophecy. So now Yehoshua is developing his own style, and he's also understanding. And how is he getting this? Because Hashem is consistently concerned with that Yehoshua should understand, I am with you like I was with Moshe, and we will do great things, and you will do great things. And he goes and he tells the people, then he goes to the people, and there's one other thing with this pasuk over here. It says, Ach rechoki hieh beinechem uveino. We're talking about the Aaron, but be a distant. We're talking about the distant of 2,000 feet, like not more than 2,000 feet. And then they have the word here, beino, beis yud, reading beino, between him, or beinav, between them. So what does that extra yud mean? It's spelled in the Navi, Beis Yud Nun Vav, and in parentheses it's spelled Beis Yud Nun Yud Vav, between him. And that extra yud is telling us something. That extra yud symbolizes, so now we have the Aaron of the bris of Hashem, and then we have something else. And what is that something else? We have a second Aaron. The second Aaron is fulfilling the promise that the brothers and the people gave to Yosef HaTzadik, that they would not leave his bones to rot in Mitzrayim. They will take his coffin, and Moshe was taking that along all the time. So now crossing the Jordan was going to be these two arcs, one of Yosef HaTzadik and one who deserved it for all that he had done, and one of the Aaron Bris Hashem. So, and you should know that this is going to happen. And now he's telling the people, great wonders are going to happen that you haven't seen before. Great wonders are going to happen to you. He doesn't say to him, great wonders are going to happen to me to be able to show you my power. It's all about the Jew. It's all about his humbleness. He was truly a humble human being. And then he tells them to sanctify and purify themselves. What are we talking about, sanctifying and purifying ourselves? What does that mean? What does that even show? So here they're about to enter the land, They are frightened. They are not 100% sure that Hashem still has forgiven them for the sins of the past that they didn't even commit, because this is a new generation. But they're still concerned, and they still need to know Hashem is with them. And then he says, don't worry. I know Hashem is going to do great wonders for you. And it's not only you as a plural, it's you as each individual. You are all going to feel the blessing of Hashem, which is so, and you're going to see wonders in your midst. And then he tells them, and now what is going to happen? What is this wonderful, amazing story? So there's a story that happens. He tells the Kohanim, now he says to them, you will carry the Aron, bris of Hashem, and you will cross in front of the nation, so they will see that you are, that you have that ability, that something powerful is about to happen. And also, he says, and he will go before them. You will go before them. He wasn't sitting there leading. He wasn't getting up there and he's leading and everything's behind him, or going even right behind. He was in their midst. He was, again, who was Yehoshua? He was the man in their midst. He was their man that they could trust. And then he says, Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua. Now Hashem says to Yehoshua, Hayom hazeh, this day, Achel gadzelcha b'einei kol Yisrael, I will make you great in the eyes of all of Israel. No say Aaron Habris, who will be the Kohanim. And so you, because of that, I'm going to make, excuse me, I skipped a line. B'einei kol Yisrael, asher yeda'un ki ka'asher hayisi im Moshe ehyeh imach. As I am telling you, I'm going to make you great in the eyes of all of Israel, and that they will know that just as I was with Moshe, I will be with you. So you don't have to be afraid. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through this together. It's going to happen. So Hashem reassures Yehoshua to reassure the people. Now you command the Kohanim, who are carrying the bris of Hashem, saying, Ke'avochem ad kitzei mei hayarden. When you approach, as you will come to the edge of the Yarden. Now, what is the state of the Yarden? The Yarden is a river. It is not a sea. It's a river. People cross a river. Why did they need to have the splitting of the Jordan River happen? It wasn't the same. It was different. We'll talk about that in a minute. Why did that have to happen when people crossed the river? Yaakov crossed the Jordan River when he went out of Israel to go to his uncle. David HaMelech crossed over the river without a big miraculous thing happening. You can't cross over a river. There are places in a river that are a little more shallow than other places. So it can be done that you can cross over a river. It wasn't necessary. What is the difference between? So Hashem says, I'm going to make you great. I'm going to make a big miracles are going to be happening now. So as they put their feet in, the Kohanim put their feet into the Jordan River, then something is going to happen. So we know something is going to happen because it's split, and it's split in a whole different way. So what is the difference between the splitting of the Reed Sea, the Yam Suf, and the splitting of the Jordan River? What is the difference here? So the difference here is, picture the sight. The Jews are leaving Egypt. They're running for their lives, and they come to the edge, and there's a sea, not a river. There is a sea. Not only are they at a sea, but they're high up from the sea. It's a cliff. And down below is the sea, and behind them is the Egyptians running after them. They were running for their lives. Something had to happen. So that was a miracle that had to happen to save their life and to show Hashem's greatness. Here, they could have done it just the same. But Hashem wanted, A, to show the Jews that he's with them in the way that he was with them when they came out of Egypt. B, he wanted to show the people of the world that Hashem is in charge of the world. He wanted them to understand, and he wanted to instill fear. Now, we know the story of how the sea was divided was into 12 rows, and each row had a wall, and it was so amazing. If you can envision, you're walking through this dry land, which Rachel, if we remember the story of Rachel, what was the thing that really struck her when she was 10 years old? Rachel, who was the innkeeper slash harlot spy, I'm not spy, she housed the spies. What did she hear when she was a little 10-year-old? She heard about the splitting of the Reed Sea, of the Yam Suf. That made her want to join the Jewish people when she was a little girl of 10 years old. So this was a momentous occasion, a momentous happening, and now, and that was because it was a necessity. Now Hashem is going to do this to impress upon the world and the people surrounding to have fear of the Israelites coming. And you have the choice of becoming a ger tashuv, to be a citizen of the land and follow the Noahide laws, or you can leave, or you will have to battle. And you won't make it if you battle, just so you know. And so what ends up happening is now we're going to have, that's the purpose of the splitting of the sea. Now, the sea, again, the Reed Sea, the river. The Reed Sea had rows, and there were walls, and you could see the fish, and fruit was growing, and as the multitude of Jews were going, they were, according to Medrash, they were picking fruit and eating things. It was a total dry experience, like going through an aquarium. If you've ever been through an aquarium, I was once in Perth in an aquarium, and I love aquariums and zoos. So we were going through this moving path that you pass, and I was imagining, and you see the animals the fish on either side, the aqualife on either side. I was imagining that must have been how it felt going through the Yam Suf. This is a whole different experience. This is like something even, in a way, more unusual and not as well known. Not everybody knows. What do people hear about Joshua entering the land? What do they hear? Any? What do people hear when they hear, or they hear the story about Joshua coming into the land? The walls of Jericho. You know, there's a song about it. And the walls, how did it go? Walls of Jericho came tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down. So here, what happened was, this is a flowing river. It's flowing. And God takes a spot where he raises it up into a column. It's a huge, huge column. It's not that wide a river. So it's not as wide as the sea was. So you have this huge column. According to some opinions, it was 12 miles high. According to some opinions, another opinion, it was 300 miles high. It was very high. It was very significant. Why did it have to be so high and significant? Because they had to see it from all over. Yes. So you had this column of water. So as soon as the Kohanim step in, now let's talk about the Kohanim for a moment. We never really spoke about how do they carry the Aron. Okay. All right. Yes. We were just talking about, besides the heavy, how do they carry it out of respect? So you have this box, very heavy box. It's not that big. It's 2.5 cubit length, 2.5 cubit wide, and half a cubit height. Now, what is a cubit? We'll find out one day. I didn't find it out today. So what they had these long poles, 2 long poles, and 4 people on either side needed to carry the Aron. And they couldn't carry it like this, one behind the other, because that's disrespectful. So what you had was, you had 2 carrying it forward. You were always facing the Aron. So it was not such a simple matter. Aside, let's go away from the heaviness of the Aron, the wood, the gold, the luchos, the tablets. So they're walking. 2 are walking forward, and 2 are walking backward, always facing the Aron Kodesh, the Aron. So then it has a new name now. It develops a new name. It develops the name called Aaron Bris Adon HaOlam, the Ark of Covenant of the Master of the World. This is the first time it is referred to in that reference. Aaron, not only Aaron Hashem, Aaron, they call about the people. Over here, Haya Kenoach Kapos Raglei HaKohanim. This is as they are entering the Jordan. They're standing on the bank of the Jordan. The feet of the Kohanim that are carrying Nosei, Aaron Hashem Adon Kol Haaretz. The Aaron of Hashem, the bris of the covenants, the master of all the earth. That's a new title here. And they carry it into the middle of the Yarden. Now, we might think that it carries it in the middle of the Yarden. No, you think that they're carrying it. In actuality, a miracle occurs that the Aaron itself carries them.
Oh, wow.
And they go all the way to the middle. Another new miracle happens. So that's the miracle of the Aaron. Does anybody remember seeing a picture, like a painting of one of Nachshon's pictures, where they have like these floating priests? I tried to find it on Google. I could not find it. They have these priests holding, or these garbed, dressed people holding the Aaron and floating on the Jordan. I could not find the pictures. I don't know if it was from Nachshon or another artist, but anyway. So that's what happened. That itself carries, the Aaron itself carries the people, not that they needed to be strong. And another thing about the Aaron is that you could not put it on a wagon. People were punished for that, and you could not put it on an animal. More than 4 people could not carry it. So here you have these restrictions. Only 4 people, and only facing. Only the people, 4 people carrying it, and not on an animal, and not on a wagon. It could not be handled physically like that. It was too physical.
It was part of the prophecy, deciding how it was going to be carried, or no?
It was part of the yes. No, they were always carrying it like that throughout the desert. They always had to carry it like that. Whenever they were traveling, so when they built the Mishkan, so the Aaron was housed in the Holy of Holies by the Mishkan. The way that they had a courtyard, and you had where the two sacrificial tables are, the mizbeach, the tables. There was the candelabra. There was the golden shulchan. Those were all things that was taken apart. But once it was put together, every time they settled, they put the whole Mishkan together, the tabernacle together. When they would travel, they would have to take it apart. And what are they doing with the Mishkan, with Aaron? They had to carry it throughout the 40 years that way. Always carrying it, 4 people, always facing each other. So whenever they were traveling, they were carrying it that way. But again, there was a miracle that it wasn't so heavy for them. Because it was very heavy. It was like weighing tons. People could not, and you couldn't put it on a wagon, and you couldn't put it on an animal. You had to carry it physically.
Did you say it could never be set down onto something?
I didn't say that, but it couldn't be carried.
Okay.
But when it was set in the Holy of Holies. It was set the way it was set. It wasn't set on a table.
Right.
It was set as was, or maybe it was suspended. I kind of remember something of being suspended. Anyway, so there was another miracle that happened here. Yahushua tells the people, gather the people around, because he wants them to see the miracle. Where are they gathering? Now imagine, what are staves? Staves are poles, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this box, and you have these very long poles. On either side are 2 people on each side carrying it. All the Jewish people miraculously fit in between those poles.
Oh my God.
That was another miracle that happened that day. So as they are walking and going through the dry land, so the column rises up as soon as they put their feet into the Yarden. It rises up into this humongous column, not separated column. It was a huge column. They needed to be close to see the impact of the miracle. They needed to see it with their physical eyes. Not only did the riverbed dry up, everything dried up in their path. That meant all the stones dried up, so that Yahushua then designates 12 men to pick up stones. They don't know why. First, he has to designate 12 men, 1 man from each tribe. And then later, after they go through, they have to go and pick up stones for, which we'll find out next week, for stones for whatever reason. And those stones would dry. This is all happening very quickly. They put their feet in, the column rises. Now let's talk a minute about doing miracles. The fact that Hashem is doing these miracles, Hashem created nature. He wanted man to live within the framework of something called nature, not living miraculous lives. You have the Jews who are now coming out of living 40 years of a miraculous life. The miraculous life is that they have their food provided for, they have the water of Miriam following them, all their needs are met. Their clothing are automatically dry cleaned. I don't think they ever had to change their clothing. And they have this miraculous existence that they, 40 years before, were fighting about leaving this miraculous existence. Hashem says, no, when I have to do a miracle, it has to be very precious to me. It has to be special. If not, then it doesn't mean anything. So when he's doing these miracles, it's not only for the benefit of Israel, it's for their comfort to know that Hashem is with them. He's not deserting them because Moshe died. I've sent you another leader, and he's good, and he's going to get you through it. And then you also have, so you have all these different things that are happening that Hashem doesn't take lightly. He doesn't just wiggle his nose like Bewitched. There was a show on TV when I was a little girl. Right? She wiggled her nose and something could happen. There were witches and there were magicians, but that wasn't the norm. So here Hashem did these. Now I just want to go through, because before we leave, there were 6 very special things that happened. So we have let me go back a minute. We have the splitting of the Jordan, which it rises in a column. They have to go through the Kohanim with the ark. Aaron Bris Hashem Adon Kol Haaretz, like special title here, is hovering in the middle of the river and waiting for all the Yidden to go through, and then they're going to be zhud, to the other side. So they're hovering over there. And then they get into the land. They actually make it into the land. Amazing. And so that happens. Now, there were 6 things that happened for Joshua. 6 levels of greatness he achieved, on that very day. Number 1, he enabled the people to gather between the staves of the ark. Number 2, he's given the power to command the priests. Now, when we read it, the priests are standing waiting. They knew their task. Why didn't they just go in? Because they had to wait till Joshua told them, now's the time, go in. So they didn't automatically assume, because there was a little bit of a power balance, not an imbalance, because till he got full prophecy, he had to go to the Kohanim, the priests, to ask them what he should do next. He didn't get straight prophecy. But now it's showing that they recognized who he was now, and they said, now he has straight prophecy. So they waited until he said. So they waited. He was given the power to command the priests. 3, he did not have to introduce another command by Hashem, and so has Hashem spoken to me. Do this, this, and that. He didn't have to do that anymore. He had full-on prophecy and full-on leadership. Number 4, the splitting of the Jordan, by that he becomes like Moshe. Compared to Moshe, who the splitting of the Reed Sea, the Yam Suf, happened. Now Joshua is, yes, it's not a big sea, it's a river, but the miracle is the same. So that happened to Yehoshua to show that he is on the level, the correct leader, and you'll be safe with him. Then 5, Hashem shows the people that the splitting was in his merit, in Joshua's merit, in Yehoshua's merit. Hashem did this particular nace, even though, as I said, he takes very carefully the amount of time he goes against nature that he created in order for us to live normal lives. So he didn't do that. And so we know that now this is becoming settled. And what else did he write? We talked about the Aaron. And what's number 6? Number 6 level of that day, Joshua was able to ask Hashem for prophecy anytime he needed it. He didn't have to wait. If he needed it, he got the prophecy right away. He had he had attained Moshe Rabbeinu's level of prophecy. Not the same relationship as God, because only Moshe Rabbeinu could achieve that relationship. But he had the same level of prophecy. All the other, as I said, prophets had to sometimes wait if a question was going to be answered. They had to pray about it. They could wait even several days. And sometimes they weren't even answered at all. So, but that never happened to Moshe. And I would say it didn't happen to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in that way either. They were the start of the family, but they had a different kind of relationship with God. They had really, I guess, a real child relationship. You know how a parent is like removed a little bit? Like you have to be the parent. But Moshe was not an equal, but he was Hashem's partner, even though Avram was also a partner, but not in the same way. I mean, I shouldn't say not in the same way. He was in a whole different category. Moshe, the fathers and the mothers were in a whole different category altogether. And then at the end, he is chosen. He chooses. The last part is that he's choosing 12 men from each tribe to take these stones, which we'll find out about next week. So I guess I have next week, I don't know who of you are here next week. Is everybody? Great, I'll learn. And then I do have a wedding that I'm going to be gone for from the 1st until the 6th, but I'll have class that week. And then I go to Florida, so I'll be gone for about 4 weeks, and then we will resume again if you guys want to.
Yeah. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, Mushka.